spread it across the country.
Here we go back. This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us. Like the ceiling can't hold us. Here we go back. This is the moment. Tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over. So we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us. Like the ceiling can't hold us.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. So Amy and I love presenting together, and we love talking about the human body. And we are crazy about your body, about your guts, and about your life. And so we are so glad that you came to join us tonight. And tonight's topic is one that's going to be a lot of fun. We're talking about zebras. I'm serious. We're talking about zebras, and we're talking about ulcers. It's going to be really exciting. And there's a reason why. And tonight, I'd like to welcome our very own comic relief. Now, so when I was explaining to Greg, my husband, about what we do, he's like, well, who's there to to provide some comic relief? And I'm like, well, we're really comical, but he goes, how about the color? Will you explain what in the world color is in the sports world, dear?
Yeah, a color commentator. Whenever you have a team that's calling a game, let's say a football game, you have your play-by-play man, and then you have your color commentator who spices up what has just been said and adds a little bit to it. My job here is just to add some humor and to push the envelope until Karen puts me in timeout.
Put you in timeout. So this is something new. We've never had a color commentator before.
Yeah.
We're very excited here at Monday Night Madness.
Because Karen and I just are a little too boring on our own, I guess.
Boring.
She said it, I didn't.
Like-
they all know better. Hello.
I'm glad to hear you think we need some comic relief over here. So thank you, Greg.
It was her idea.
Really
I
appreciate
didn't
that.
do it.
Anyway, so we'll go ahead and share the topic for today. We're going to present the topic, and Karen already gave a little hint, but I want to know from you by raise of hand, do any of you know why zebras don't get ulcers?
No ulcers, never. No zebra ever had an ulcer.
Well, we don't statistically know
but
that.
they wrote a book with that title.
They
Does that mean
did-
it's true?
They did write a book. A doctor wrote a book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. Does anyone know by raise of hand?
They don't pay taxes.
That's not it, but that was actually
That's good.
that was
That's
an
good.
educated
That's
guess. So here is the concept and the theme for tonight. Is a lot of us have been exposed to various stressors throughout a day-to-day life, whether you're a parent or you have a job, and or as you mentioned, there's different financial pressures and social pressures, and we can get in fight or flight, almost like you're being chased by a tiger, and kind of get stuck there. That's a really normal thing in the 21st century. In fact, up to 40% of Americans are currently experiencing some level of a mood disorder or a mental health struggle. And so a lot of us have gotten stuck on the high end or on the low end of that stress and anxiety matrix. And that inability to be able to seamlessly flow back and forth between fight or flight and rest and digest can contribute to both biological symptoms as well as psychological symptoms. And to tell you guys the secret behind the whole concept of zebras not getting ulcers, which is just a really clever title to a book to explain stress and coping mechanisms. Zebras have this phenomenal ability to, within a minute of being chased by a lion or some type of predator in the wild, within a minute, they can go back to just like grazing on the grass like nothing ever happened. So just to be clear, you could be a zebra in the wild and be like drinking at the water hole and just having a grand old time with your friends, and all of a sudden like a lion, oh my gosh,
Oh, I thought I just that.
lion comes around the corner, you take off running for your dear life, full-blown fight or flight, norepinephrine running through your veins, acetylcholine shut off, digestion shut off, everything, rest and digest shuts off. And then as soon as the lion is out of sight, and you're back into safety, give it like a minute's time, and you're back to before the tiger was even there. And
Lion.
the lion, it keeps changing.
Lions change zebras.
Lions chase
Zebras
zebras.
and lions are in Africa.
Okay.
Tigers are in South Asia.
So,
That would
okay,
do it.
thank you. So what would the tiger be chasing? Like a water buffalo?
No. Chase, we're here to discuss zebras.
Okay, you're right.
They don't chase zebras.
Okay. So I'm here teaching anatomy and physiology, not zoology. So please forgive me. The lion gets done chasing the zebra and the zebra goes back to grazing. Now, that ability for the body to change what neurotransmitters are being released in the body, to be able to redirect where blood is flowing, to be able to control what hormones are being released that are essential for digestion and essential for sleep. That is what makes all the difference in the zebra's health. Because if they stayed in fight or flight as long as 21st century adults stay in fight or flight, guess what? They would be stuck there. And then all of the neurotransmitters they need to properly digest food and be able to sleep deeply at night and be able to properly relax wouldn't be released in their body. And they would end up getting digestive disorders and mood disorders and a lot of the other disorders we're facing with today.
And
So-
a second mortgage and 2 ex-wives.
That could happen.
That could very rough. That sounds really rough. So
I've had clients who literally, when they learn about how to breathe and how to do some of the therapies that we teach to bring someone into a parasympathetic state, they're like, I have been living in sympathetic state for decades.
Yeah.
Like they're always so stressed and
Yeah.
they're so driven. So I'm not surprised that people would get to that state.
yeah, and a lot of times, we're learning about autoimmune conditions and gut health disorders and any kind of immune system dysregulation and hormone dysregulation. There's all of these downstream symptoms that are actually the result of an upstream issue of the body not being able to seamlessly transfer between these two. So for tonight, we want to spend a few minutes talking about our favorite biological ways to to help the body enhance its ability to fluctuate between those two states, as well as psychological tips and tools that support with that. Because you guys if you've been studying holistic health, the cool part about it is that there are biological approaches as well as psychological approaches, as well as social, as well as spiritual. There's a lot of ways to support the body. And that's what we get to talk about tonight. So that is a little introduction to today's call. And next time you will get offered $1 million to answer the question, why don't zebras get ulcers? You will know the answer. So congratulations.
Excellent. So we want to talk right now then about some of the tips that we have shared with our clients or with our students on how to relax the body and get from that scary, oh my gosh, I have to run because the bear's coming through the door, into okay, homeostasis. And why is this so important? This is so important because the minute you go into sympathetic state, you get nervous, you get afraid, you get frightened, you get worried, you wake up and you're worried about the bills, you're worried about what's happening outside, you're worried about the weather. Your blood flow literally stops going to your vital organs. You get far less blood flow to the vital organs, and more of it is going out to your fingers, going out to your legs, your feet, so you can run away from the lion. Now, interesting, I did studies on this many years ago, a couple decades ago. I read a bunch of studies that were done on children inside the womb, and the children inside of the womb that were exposed to beautiful music and kind words and a loving atmosphere at home, because that baby can hear absolutely everything. It's just millimeters away from the world, right? And so the homes where there was joy and happiness and reading and nice music, the children were born and they had healthier vital organs. And most importantly, they had a really strong left logic sense of the brain. It was very well developed. These children went on to do very well in school academically. And on the reverse end, this is really interesting, the children who were in homes when they were in the womb, where there was a lot of anger, a lot more fighting, they didn't have enough money to pay the bills, they didn't always have enough food, there was a lot more stress. The mother's stress levels were literally being fed into that baby's womb because there were different hormones being produced by that mother who was living in sympathetic state than the mother that was living in parasympathetic state. And so when those babies were born, they had this blood flow that was naturally going to the muscles, right, to the extremities, so they could run really fast, they could dunk basketballs, and they could jump really far, and they could become really athletic. So we had these two very diverse groups of people just from what the baby was exposed to in the womb. And so when we can learn to balance what we're exposed to on a daily basis, we actually can change from sympathetic into parasympathetic pretty easily. And we're here to give you some tips on how that happens. Very cool stuff.
I'm surprised you didn't have anything for that one.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll share a couple more.
You were rolling. I couldn't get a word edgewise.
So how long would you guys guess it takes to be able to switch from a highly stressed state into parasympathetic? Can you guys throw in the chat how many minutes or hours? How long do you think it takes the body to be able to swap from one into the other from that? And just to be clear on an anatomical level, like your body will have nerves that are releasing, those sympathetic neurotransmitters, which is norepinephrine primarily, will be releasing that to certain tissues all day long. And you'll also have parasympathetic nerves that are releasing acetylcholine to their respective tissues all day long. So you're never all one or all the other, but you are primarily one or the other. Okay. So I'm just clarifying that it's never a 100% switch between the two, but you are predominantly in one over the other. So we have a few different guesses. We have 24 hours, 20 mins.
And this is good to know, because it is when you go into sympathetic state, it can literally take hours to reverse that all by its own without you doing anything else. It can take hours and several hours to a full day to get back down, which is why when you go to a haunted house and you're really stressed out, right? It's like, or you watch a really scary movie, that can linger with you. And the biggest thing is it turns off the immune system. So you are not able to fight off dis-ease because your body is living in this sympathetic state. And so then our parasympathetic organs aren't able to help fight off that disease, which is why what you're going to learn tonight is going to take you from the hours of the days that it may take into some of your answers right now into a much shorter period of time.
Totally. So we definitely have a range of answers from a few minutes to a couple hours to days. So these are great guesses, everyone. And I love that Karen mentioned, it actually does depend on how intentional we are about it. So like she said, you could just let it ride its course and kind of naturally, slowly come off of that. Or you could introduce some of these, they call it biohacking tools, but some of these things can within minutes actually drop your heart rate and activate your vagus nerve to release acetylcholine and get you back into a state of parasympathetic mode. And so a few people have already mentioned it. Breathwork is an incredible tool for that. And I want to mention with breathwork, that's one that can actually get you into either state, depending on whether you're doing slow breathing or fast breathing. And I know that getting stressed out has been very vilified in today's culture, but actually stress is extremely healthy for you in the right dose. There are some mood disorders that exist because people actually don't have enough cortisol or enough norepinephrine. Their body doesn't get stimulated if they're inside all day, just like chilling out. They never get that flood of those sympathetic neurotransmitters to all their muscle tissues and that incredible chemical cascade that happens when you exercise and breathe deep and you're forcing all that like oxygen and just energy throughout your whole body. And so it's not a bad thing to be stressed. It's a bad thing to stay stressed, okay? Or to have like a traumatic level of stress, which is actually that is a threshold where it can become psychologically damaging. So what she's talking about, we want to be able to flow back. So when you're choosing breath work, just know you can choose breath work exercises that'll put you to sleep and drop you in a parasympathetic state really fast. And one of my best friends just introduced an app that can also really help with that, called brain.fm. So brain.fm. It's an app that it's sound therapy. And so if you combine that with breath work, oh my goodness, total game changer. And for anyone who also wants help focusing or has ever experienced the symptoms of ADHD, they have tracks designed specifically for people with ADHD to help you focus better.
Okay.
And we're doing ADHD on a separate call.
So we got to really concentrate on like when not to use this app.
When not to use this
like
app?
When would you not want to relax that much? I would think while driving. would be a good time not to relax into a state of sleep.
Yeah, well, so here's the nice part is let me show you, Karen. They have, you can,
She calls me Karen whenever we're recording or on a professional call. So all those of you who know that this is my daughter, Amy, it's okay. It's Amy.
they have focus, relax, sleep, and meditate. Okay, so if you do end up getting that, these are different options on there.
Not to use.
But my thought was actually probably not.
So focus maybe would be good while you're driving.
Yeah, focus could help while you're driving. It could just in the
Yeah,
zone.
that's good.
Farming equipment.
Yes.
That would be
Operating heavy machinery.
yes.
Yes.
Don't do sleep mode.
Don't do the sleep one on that one. And I don't know why my first thought was like, if you're on a romantic date, this is probably not
To sleep.
not the background music I would use unless it's a cuddling date.
I don't know.
Ask your parents for permission before you do that one.
Maybe you're dating a complete psycho.
Okay.
Then you want to sleep so you
we are
don't,
gonna-
No, you try them to sleep.
we are
for
gonna
them to
move
sleep. There
along.
we go.
No.
So that's one tool. So now you have sound therapy and breath work. But just keep in mind, if you pair up the breath work with the sound therapy, those are two ways that biologically, mechanically alter your nervous system. You can't fight it. In fact, the sound of birds chirping
Mhm.
is something that happens on such a subconscious level of your mind to get your body back into parasympathetic state. You don't have to cognitively think like, oh, I want to think calm thoughts. I should be less stressed out. That's the cool thing about natural therapies is they will mechanically work on your nervous system. So you don't have to cognitively jump through all these, loopholes to get your body
So
calm.
really what we're thinking is there's rain, there's birds, all these nature, natural things you're hearing actually calm the body. All the running water that you hear from a waterfall. That's why it's so important to bring some of these into your house because you can bring natural sounds into your home. I mean, you can even have birds in your home, but then you got to clean up, bird cages all the time.
Wouldn't the first step be to remove the source of the stress?
Yeah.
So
You haven't mentioned that part.
So I'm happy I'm happy you asked that. I'm happy you asked that.
If your mother-in-law is still in the room, it's
Mhm.
all
Then
just gonna
leave.
work.
So I'm happy you
Put
brought that up.
Turn the birds up louder.
I'm happy you brought that up because I honestly want to talk about
He
this.
likes my mother. Okay, so
Oh,
nothing
yeah,
to do
that's-
about my mother.
I want to talk about this. Like so many people are inclined to think the biggest source of their stress is the presence of their stress. And the best way to get rid of their stress is to remove the stressor. How many of you guys have thought like that before or met people who think like that? Like they're just like totally convinced that it's like, oh, well, if I can just get rid of the thing stressing me out, I'll be fine. But let me ask you this. Your ancestors who were like doing, drum circles at night and moving around in teepees, at some point you came from a tribe, whatever lineage you trace it back. At some point you came from a tribe. Throughout the entire length of mankind's existence, there has been stressors, whether it was like external stressors from extreme weather and war or city stressors.
My more recent ancestors were more likely to be moonshining, but okay.
Oh,
That's stressful too.
That's not gonna be
The
stressful.
revenuers are coming to get you.
That's true. So they had to hide them.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
No, they had to hide. They had to run because the revenue people were trying to find
Oh,
them.
the revenue for the moonshine.
Yeah.
So you're from the South. Moonshine is the whole moonshine production is not something that my
We are
Wisconsin
familiar with.
people
Hello,
are like
we're Yankees,
really
okay?
worried about. So yeah, sorry, I didn't catch the moonshine reference. If you come down to Georgia, guys, you know your guy to get some connections.
Maybe moonshine?
Anyway, so the point is this. Mankind has had some level of significant stress throughout our entire mortal existence. The question is, did the society that people evolved in have adequate amounts of coping mechanisms built into their culture and into their day or not? And I would argue right now, one of the biggest issues we're facing with 21st century living is that in addition to the chemical onslaught that has actually chemically affected our neurotransmitters and hormones, we've evolved into a culture that has distanced us from natural coping mechanisms such as sun exposure, sound therapy, physical touch from living in tribal communities, and gathering around a fire and even seeing the fire and hearing the crackles and hearing drums and singing as an organization. If you're going to church, you know exactly what I mean. Singing in groups is actually therapeutic to your nervous system. And so we've distanced ourselves from a lot of these natural coping mechanisms that would have calmed down the nervous system without you even having to intentionally think about it. So now we're entering this cool era where you have to like intentionally move back in time to bring some of those coping mechanisms in if you want your nervous system to have a chance.
Because social media has
Yeah.
disconnected us while claiming to connect us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, please.
So I have not used an alarm clock in years. I can just go, hey, your plane leaves at 3:40, wake up at 2:40, and I'm up, right? So I'm married to someone with this alarm clock thing, right? And I'm like, why is there an alarm clock if it's 6 a.m, right? Well, they gotta go work out, I gotta go swim. And so like my adrenals go, no, you're like, "Oh, I can't really sound like you." Anyhow, and so my adrenals would go, and it brought me back to my studies where if you are waking up with an alarm clock going right into sympathetic mode first thing in the morning, right? And we can talk about adrenals, we can talk about adrenaline, we can talk about all the cortisol levels, right? We can talk about that. But if you are purposely waking your body up in that state, it is very hard it's very natural for your body to keep in that state throughout the day because that's how it woke up in the morning. And so that's why they came out with these cool, alarm clocks. I know you said you used to have some of them where the sun comes up in your room, right? And the birds start chirping in your room. And then all of a sudden you're awake and you don't have that sudden onslaught of a cortisol rush brought into the body. So I want to mention that there are some things you can do also to remove some of the stress that comes naturally in the body
Yeah.
throughout the day.
Yeah. Well, not to mention, this is a very fascinating feature of human evolution, or not even evolution, just human like survival instincts. Is so your body's your brain's like primal region, they call it the alligator brain. It has one goal, and that's to keep you alive. So if the thoughts you've been thinking have kept you alive until this point, your brain's going, it's working. It is working. Doesn't care if it's making you happy or miserable because it's working to keep you alive. And so if any of you guys have heard of like trauma responses or coping mechanisms or stress responses, it's this concept that, we've developed thought patterns to be hyper vigilant or to like imagine the worst case scenario so you can work backwards and try to prevent it, or to be just like hyper vigilant of who your possible enemies could be or what could go wrong in the day. And the brain just gets wired to think that way. And because it's released so many stimulatory neurotransmitters, your brain now has more receptor sites for those stimulatory neurotransmitters, and it creates this actual chemical addiction to your thought patterns, in addition to the fact that your brain's like, hey, this has been working so far, so we might as well do what we did yesterday because we're still alive. So brings us to this very interesting phenomenon. And for anyone who follows Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, this is the premise of his work, is that we have to very intentionally train our nervous system to have a different experience and introduce different thought patterns in our brain intentionally, because our brain's not going to do it on its own, because what we've been doing has worked to keep us alive up until this point. And so that kind of intentional curation of different states of being. First time I ever did those meditations, it took me a long time to actually feel what the meditations were prompting me to feel, because I just hadn't felt some of those emotions in a long time, or I had severe blockages up against that. I don't know if any of you guys have had that experience, but it takes a lot of intention
to let go, to like be willing to go, okay, can I really think those thoughts? Can I really hear that? Can I mean, is this wrong? Because I was used to thinking this way. My first guided meditation with Leslie, it was on an audio thing, and I was like, it was just it was almost uncomfortable because I had not naturally gone that way. So if those of you who've not done meditation or guided meditation, check out Joe. He's great. I love the book, How to Break the Habit of Being Yourself. I've listened to it over and over and over again because it's been phenomenal. But anyhow, I just wanted to put it in, but you might feel a little awkward, because you've never done that kind of thing, just letting go and letting your thoughts move forward. It's really cool.
The book is called what?
How to Break the Habit of Being Yourself.
Okay, so if you give me that book for Christmas, that's a clue.
I think I've already told it to you. But
that's such a diss. If you give someone that book, it's like a whole.
This is so
Thank you, dear.
It's like a very passive aggressive way to suggest someone needs to change who they are.
Lives.
Like, here's
change everything about Joe.
Break the habit of being
I think I'll read.
Yeah. Don't change a thing, Greg,
No,
unless you want to. Okay. True.
You may not read that book.
Yeah,
that's
doesn't
better.
want you to change. But if you want to have a happier headspace, I do think it's just such an incredible concept to wrap our heads around, that if it feels unusual, that's okay. And
it's something new. Oh, no, can I go really, so
Yeah, I've used that line before.
I've had a lot of my clients where I bring them and I'm like, okay, you are seeing me because what you've done during your life has brought you to this point, and now you are very sick, right? You are sick with this, your relationships are with this, your health with your work is like this, your dogs, whatever it might be. So we actually need to change what you've done that has brought you to this point, because what is the definition of insanity or stupidity? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And so then I'm like, okay, so I'd like you to go home and rearrange the furniture in your bedroom. I'd like you to go out the back door for the next 2 months instead of the front door when you're going to go to work. I'd like you to park your, car in a different parking spot. I'd like you to put your shoes in a different location when you come home. Like literally start doing things differently. Go to a different restaurant for lunch. Make your own lunch. Move your silverware and you switch it around. Like literally change things in your life. Change the people you might hang out with. Stop watching the shows that you're watching. Stop listening to what you're listening. Bring in something different. By the way, you can find recordings of all of our podcasts on Podbean. Anyhow, just letting you know you can listen to
Nice
more of
plug.
these.
I like
Okay,
that.
I just had to put a
What
plug in
was
there.
that voice, Karen?
That was my be cool, great voice. Anyhow, so so literally you can rewire yourself by simply making changes to your daily habit. So there are some things you can implement as well to relieve stress. If you're stressed out every day and this is what you do every single day, then change the alarm, on your alarm that you need to wake up to. Start talking to yourself and really keying into the inside calendar, which you all have, and that not calendar, clock, the internal clock, and be like, hey, try to wake me up 5 minutes before the alarm goes off. Like whatever it might be, put those intentions out there and try to start changing some of the stressors in your life naturally.
Totally. I love that. And just forming some new neural
Yeah,
pathways while
absolutely.
you're doing that.
That's
So-
tonight's last night's all. Okay, we're at,
No, I just wanted to share like just my personal experience with learning to implement some of these things, because we did grow up eating really well. So nutrition was actually the easiest thing in this whole world of holistic health for me to implement was nutrition, because Karen over here, who had just 8 kids and 17 businesses growing up, was a master delegator, and I got kitchen duty at the age of 12. And so I just cooked for my family all growing up. So nutrition, done, easy, very grateful that that's my baseline. But so many of these other habits, breath work, that was new to me. Like that was like a last year thing. I really had never really done breath work until then. And learning about the circadian rhythm and sun exposure, new concept. I mean, I'd played outside as a kid, but going outside to get sun in the morning to boost my mood and regulate my hormones for the day, that was a new behavior. And recently I had like one of my best friends ever come stay with me. And I couldn't believe how many, just like witnessing these healthy behaviors, how helpful that was to just see it demonstrated for me. Like, oh, that's what it looks like to take a 20-minute, nap in the middle of the day, or to do a meditation at night to unwind, and to like light a candle and just like sit for 20 minutes and not do anything. Like having these behaviors demonstrated for me, or just learning how to insert them into my life, I was surprised how much, I don't want to say effort it took, but it was, it is just something I had to be intentional with, and especially be okay with, trying something new. So that was my experience. But do you guys have any good tips for how to like actually get some of these good habits plugged into your life? Karen's a master implementer who is dopamine dominant and type A. So if you tell her something one time for like 30 seconds on a bus, she will go home and change that behavior for the rest of her life. So I don't think she needed a lot of assistance implementing any of this information, but
well, it just made sense. It
Yeah.
just made sense. I mean, hello. And I think that's the biggest thing when I have clients that come to me, it's the same thing. I'm like, this just makes sense. So do you implement it or not? And we had recently, I work with a lot of people, and the number one thing I tell people, and I want you to do this yourself as well, as if you are not willing to do this, then you're not gonna be able to change. Like we need to be open to changing our diet and how we implement things. We need to be open to moving some things around in the house, opening or using a different door, doing something different. Like don't be afraid to make some of those changes, because remember, you are where you're at because of what has brought you to this point. Period. Your thoughts, your actions, your food, the people you hang out with, the things you put in are coming out, right? Everything you put in is coming out. And so you need to be able to, if you want to change your life, you actually have to change a lot or some of those things. And so I guess implementation is really what is best and what fits your schedule and your lifestyle better. So
Yeah, and self-compassion while you're
He
doing
has
it.
words.
And what do I know? I'm the uninvolved alarm clock user, so, you know.
It's okay. The alarm clock is now further away and we changed the tune this morning. I'm excited.
You got any fun, healthy new habits you've picked up in the past 6 months to a year?
Yes, I'm eating better than I used to, and I get put in time out if I don't. I had actually begun my own health journey before I met Karen,
Mhm.
and I was already 55 pounds lighter than I was in 2017.
Mhm.
And so, and that was just changing what I ate. And the key to that for me was I saw results in about 5 days. I got off of sugar and I got off of wheat carbs, and I noticed the weight loss in the first 5 days. It's highly motivational. So you really have to focus on your victories and not on your defeats.
Mm.
And focus on, these are the good things I'm doing, these are the victories I'm having, and don't worry about the fact that you really, really missed that chocolate ice cream.
Mhm.
Because you get to a point where you've lost the weight you need to lose, and you can have that chocolate ice cream again once every 2 weeks or so.
Mhm.
But yeah, initially when you're starting, focus on the victories, focus on the positive. Don't think about the things you miss. Think about the things you're gonna have. Think about how much better your knees feel.
That's
So.
great tips. Focus on the victories. So that is the topic for our first Monday Night Madness call, is throughout this next 2024, as we talk about so many different topics, from the microbiome to hormones to holistic psychology tips and tools. Right off the bat, we just wanted to throw all these different nervous system regulation tools your way to start implementing immediately. And right now I would just ask you to pick something, whether it's sound therapy or light therapy or breath work or taking magnesium or lighting a candle at night and turning the phone off an hour earlier, or wearing blue light blocking glasses, or going to therapy. Do something for your nervous system this week, and try out something new, but do something that help, and start noticing how fast it can take your body to go from one state to the other. Because heart rate variability and the ability to come in and out of stress throughout the day is one of the largest predictors for human health and animal health in general. That variability. So we're not here to just get rid of all the stressors in your life, because we can't control that, but we do have influence over how biologically and psychologically prepared you are to face the stressors that face us in the 21st century.
And I want to end with a quick story because it just happened a couple days ago. As many of you know, I'm a caretaker to an 82-year-old woman we love. Her name is Lana, and she's super fun. And I woke up at 3 a.m. because I was like, oh, something's not right. And I came down and I visited with Lana, and I could tell she wasn't doing well. She had, she had gotten a cough after the wedding. She had just been exposed to something. And so I took care of her, and then I went back to bed, and 7 a.m. I was like, oh, got to get back downstairs. So I went downstairs, and her pulse was skyrocketing. It was so fast. I was like, this is insane, right? And her blood pressure, I could hardly even find her blood pressure. I was like, okay, something's wrong, And I told Greg, I said, hey, Greg, something's not here, so he came in, we had a prayer, but I also just had her breathe. And literally her pulse within 2 minutes had dropped from, it was 125, 130, it was insane, down to 85, down to 75, literally just in minutes of breathing and being around people and prayer that just calmed her right down. And I was able to stabilize her blood pressure, her pulse, everything, her oxygen. We use one of our oxygen machines as well, but we were able to completely stabilize her within a couple of hours, and there was no issue. So literally those few minutes, though, is all it took to reduce her blood pressure and her pulse. It was absolutely incredible. So
one of my friends came from a lineage of high blood pressure, and so he went off and learned all this. He did all the Joe Dispenza stuff, comes back home and is like, Dad, I know how to help with your blood pressure. And his dad was totally skeptical. So he hooks his dad up to a blood pressure machine, takes his blood pressure, and then he walks him through a 15-minute meditation and took his blood pressure at the end, and it had dropped by like 30 or 40 points. And so his dad was like a convert after that. And it was really cool to see how fast some of this stuff works. So that said, in all seriousness, if you are on high blood pressure medication, and as well as a variety of other medications, you do want to be conscious as you implement holistic health protocols to use your bio feedback tools as much as possible and work under the supervision of an expert in this field, so that you're not getting, the holistic health can work like literally within minutes. And so you don't want to be aware of that. This stuff is very effective, and you don't want to go off the deep end.
And as with all of our podcasts, we are not medical doctors. We are totally into holistic health, but you need to make sure you're under the direction of someone that you trust. And I would like it if we ended all of our Monday Night Madness calls with you participating, because when we did the Human Body Master Guide videos, we have 500 to 600, 800 videos in that program right now. We end all of them by saying you are the master of your body. And as we learned about through Monday Night Madness calls, we have fun. We learned about something health topic. We just enjoy each other's company. I want us to remember that we are the masters of our body. And so at the end of these calls, is it okay if we do this? Amy, wouldn't that be fun? I'll say because, and then you guys can you can unmute yourself if you want, but we're going to join you. I'm going to say because, and then we're going to say, you are the master of your body. Can we do that together? Would that be okay?
We can do it together.
That'd be so fun. Okay, you guys want to try it? Okay, you don't have to, but it'd be super fun if you did. Okay. Those of you who are in that program, you're like, yes, we get to say it, right? So at the end of these programs, when we're kind of winding up, we go, and this is important because, and that'll give you the clue to like take off your mute button, and then we're going to say it. Ready?
Okay.
All together. So we learned a lot about the sympathetic and parasympathetic state today. And it's so important because
You
are
are
masters
the
of your own body.
master.
body.
Your body.
That's wild.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Are you doing okay?
Do the wave.
I hope my Fitbit picked all that action up.